It was supposed to be a simple summer. Classes were done, dorms were empty, and the college town had gone quiet under the weight of early June heat. When Emma came home, she didn't expect anything to feel different. The same walls, the same faded photographs, the same mother who fussed too much and loved too hard. But that afternoon, when she walked into the living room, suitcase still in hand, someone else was there. "Emma, look who's here," her mother said brightly, as if announcing good news. The woman turned, and for a second, Emma forgot how to breathe. "Hi, honey," said Diane, her mother's best friend since forever, a woman Emma hadn't seen in almost 4 years. She looked different now. Her dark hair was shorter, streaked with silver at the temples, her posture softer, but her eyes, those calm ocean gray eyes, still carried that quiet warmth that could steady a storm. "Diane?" Emma smiled awkwardly. "Wow, it's been a while." "It has," Diane said, her voice low and smooth, like she'd swallowed a sunset. "You've grown up." Her mother clapped her hands. "Diane's staying the weekend. Her place is being renovated. Remember that old leak problem? So she's with us for a few days." "Oh," Emma said, trying to sound casual. "That's nice." The evening passed in easy conversation, at least for them. Emma mostly listened, studying Diane from across the table. The way she laughed softly at her mom's stories, the way her fingers brushed the rim of her wine glass, thoughtful, graceful, and the way those same eyes would flick toward Emma every now and then, brief, unreadable glances that lingered half a second too long. When her mother went to bed early, claiming she was wiped out, Diane stayed behind, finishing her wine on the couch. Emma, restless, joined her. The house felt suddenly too quiet. A summer breeze drifted in through the open window, carrying the faint hum of crickets. They sat there in the half-light of the TV screen, neither speaking for a while. "So," Diane said, finally, breaking the silence, "how's college treating you?" Emma shrugged. "Good, I guess. Busy. Everyone's pretending they have it all figured out. And you?" "I'm pretending too." That made Diane smile, a small, knowing curve of the lips that felt too intimate for the room. "Pretending's exhausting," she murmured. Emma looked at her, really looked at her. The way the light touched the hollow of her throat, the faint lines by her mouth, the tiredness behind her elegance. "You seem different," she said quietly. Diane met her gaze, the kind that didn't look away. "Maybe I just stopped pretending." The air between them shifted, imperceptible but real. Emma felt her chest tighten, her stomach flutter. Then her mother's voice called faintly from upstairs. "Diane, you still up?" Diane blinked, turned back to the TV. "Yeah, just heading up." She stood, smiling at Emma. "Good night, sweetheart." And then she was gone. Her soft perfume, jasmine and rain, lingering long after. That night, Emma lay awake in her childhood bed, the ceiling fan spinning slow circles above her. She couldn't stop thinking about Diane's eyes and the way her name had sounded, wrapped in that low, careful voice. She told herself it was nothing, nostalgia, admiration, loneliness, but deep down, she knew it was the beginning of something she didn't have words for. By Thursday, the heat had settled over the house like a blanket. The air was too heavy to move, the sky swollen and gray. Emma had spent most of the day in her room, trying to focus on her summer reading list, but rereading the same line over and over again. Every time she looked out her window, she could see Diane in the garden,
barefoot, pruning roses with slow, careful movements. Her mother had left that morning for a work retreat. "Just 2 nights, you girls will be fine." She had hugged Diane goodbye longer than usual, and when the car finally disappeared down the street, the silence that followed was immediate and thick. Emma made coffee just to have something to do. Diane came in from the garden, her white button-down clinging to her skin, damp from the humidity. "You don't have to make that," she said with a soft smile. "You're supposed to be on vacation." I shrugged. I like doing things for people. "That's a dangerous habit," Diane said, leaning against the counter. "People take advantage of that." There was something in her tone, not teasing but careful, like she'd lived that truth before. Emma met her eyes, and for a second, neither of them spoke. Then thunder rolled in the distance. By evening, the storm had broken. Rain hammered the windows, wind howling through the trees outside. The lights flickered twice, then went out completely. "Oh, great," Emma sighed. Diane laughed softly. "Romantic, isn't it?" Emma froze. It wasn't what she said, it was how she said it. Playful but heavy with something that wasn't quite a joke. They found candles in the kitchen drawer and lit them, the soft golden light dancing across the walls. The house smelled faintly of rain and wax. They sat across from each other at the dining table, sipping wine that had started as just 1 glass and had become 2. "You really grew up," Diane said, voice low, almost reflective. "I still remember when you were this shy little girl who refused to talk to anyone at your mother's parties." Emma smiled. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." The words hung there, and for a heartbeat, neither of them moved. "Do you ever miss it?" Emma asked quietly. "Being young? Having everything ahead of you?" Diane looked away, the candlelight flickering in her eyes. "Every day," she whispered. "But sometimes I think maybe something new can still begin, even after you think you're done starting over." Emma didn't know what made her reach across the table. Maybe the wine, maybe the storm outside, or maybe the loneliness that had been sitting between them all week. Her fingers brushed Diane's hand. Just once, a simple, human thing, but the air changed completely. Diane didn't pull away. She looked down at their hands, then back up at Emma. "You shouldn't," she said softly, but her voice wasn't sure. "I know," Emma whispered back, but she didn't move either. The wind outside howled louder, rattling the windows. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and for a brief second Emma saw her reflection in Diane's eyes, scared, longing, and alive all at once. Then the thunder came. The candles flickered out. In the dark, neither of them said another word. Minutes passed. The only sounds were rain, breath, and the slow beat of something fragile breaking open. Then Diane stood, stepping away from the table. "I'm going to bed," she said, her voice unsteady. "Okay," Emma managed. But as Diane passed behind her, she felt the faintest touch, a hand on her shoulder, warm, deliberate, lingering just long enough to mean something. When she finally went to her room later, she could still feel that touch, like a brand she couldn't shake. Outside, the storm began to fade, but inside, something far more dangerous had started to stir. She lay awake for hours, the echo of Diane's voice in her head. Maybe something new can still begin. And she wondered if that something had already begun. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the world washed and still. The sky was pale, the air damp, and somewhere outside, a bird was singing like nothing had happened. Emma hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Diane, the candlelight on her skin, the quiet ache in her voice, the way her hand had lingered on Emma's shoulder before walking away. When she finally stepped out of her room, the smell of coffee drifted through the hallway. Diane was at the kitchen table, her hair still messy from sleep, wearing one of Emma's mother's old robes. For a moment, Emma just stood in the doorway, watching her. There was something heartbreakingly ordinary about it. Two people in a kitchen, sunlight coming through the blinds, but inside, everything was anything but ordinary. "Morning," Emma said finally. Diane looked up, startled, then smiled. A small, tired curve of her lips. "Morning. Coffee's ready." Emma poured herself a cup, her hands trembling just slightly. "Did you sleep?" Diane shook her head. "Not much. Me neither." They sat across from each other again, like the night before, but now the silence felt heavier. Neither of them seemed to know where to begin, or if they should begin at all. After a long pause, Diane spoke. "About last night." Emma's heart jumped. "Yeah?" Diane hesitated, searching for words. "I don't know what to call it. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just the storm, the wine, the loneliness." She said it softly, like she was trying to convince herself more than Emma. But Emma just stared at her. "Was it nothing to you?" Diane looked down at her coffee. The sunlight hit her cheek, turning the faint lines at the corner of her eyes into gold. "No," she whispered finally. "It wasn't nothing." Something inside Emma broke open at that. The fear, the confusion, the tearful walls she'd been holding. She leaned forward before she could stop herself. Then why pretend it was? Diane's gaze met hers again, and there was a storm behind it. Quieter than last night's, but far more dangerous. "It can't be," she said. "You're young, Emma. You're your mother's daughter. I'm her friend. This," she gestured between them, trembling, "this isn't supposed to happen." Emma swallowed hard. "You make it sound like I chose it, like I woke up one morning and decided to fall for you." "Don't," Diane said, voice breaking. "Don't say that." "Why not? It's true." "Because if you say it, I'll have to admit I feel it too." The words hung between them like lightning in the distance, silent but electric. Neither moved. The air seemed to stop. Then Diane stood abruptly and turned toward the sink, gripping the edge of the counter. Her back was to Emma, her shoulders shaking slightly. Emma rose too, slowly, as though moving through water. "I didn't plan this either," Diane said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to believe that." "I do," Emma said. Stepped closer. "But maybe we don't have to plan everything. Maybe it's okay to just feel something real, even if it scares us." When Diane finally turned around, her eyes were wet. "You don't understand. You're just starting your life. I've already lived mine. If we do this, we both lose something." Emma shook her head. "Or maybe we both find something." For a long moment, neither said another word. Then, quietly, almost imperceptibly, Diane reached out. Her fingers brushed Emma's wrist, hesitant, trembling, but full of everything she couldn't say. Emma didn't move. She let her hand turn, let their fingers interlace, and for the first time, neither of them pulled away. The touch was soft, not like the night before, no confusion, no desperation, just a quiet acknowledgement of something that had been there all along. Diane took a shaky breath. "If we do this, there's no going back." Emma smiled, small, sad, and certain. "I don't want to go back." Their lips met in the space between words, between right and wrong, between what they were supposed to feel and what they actually did. It wasn't a kiss of hunger. It was relief. Years of loneliness finding a mirror. Two hearts finally exhaling at the same time. When they parted, Diane rested her forehead against Emma's. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "Then we'll learn," Emma said. Outside, the morning light grew warmer, pouring through the windows and across the floor like forgiveness. Hours later, Emma's mother called, cheerful, unaware, promising to be home the next day. They both froze when the phone rang, reality slipping back into the room. But even as the sound faded, the moment didn't disappear. It lingered, soft, fragile, but real. That night, they sat together on the porch, wrapped in the same blanket, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold and pink. Neither spoke much. They didn't need to. Every glance, every small smile said enough. "I don't know what happens next," Diane said quietly. Emma looked at her, the wind brushing her hair across her face. "Maybe that's the point. We don't have to know. We just have to be brave enough to see." And for once, Diane didn't argue. She leaned her head on Emma's shoulder, closing her eyes. The world outside was quiet again. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, not before it. The kind that feels like the beginning of something new. In that moment, neither of them were thinking about right or wrong, the past or the future. There was only now. And now was enough.